Hey everyone, it's your host of the Chronic Convos podcast, Ashley Yudkovic, and I am joined by a very special guest today, Betty Ryder. Betty and I met through WAAA. She is one of our newer advocates. Before I let her introduce herself, one of the ways that we kind of got interested in each other, not only because she was interested in coming on the podcast, but also as a lot of you warriors out there know, or those of you who are supporting a warrior, it's not uncommon to have more than one autoimmune or chronic illness at a time. However, it's a little bit more uncommon to have more than four. And Betty and I related very quickly on that level. Not sure if we want to wear that as a badge of honor or not, but we just kind of started talking and found out that we have a lot of overlap with a lot of our different illnesses, so we wanted to shed light on that. So, Betty, let our viewers and listeners know where you are zooming in from or hail from, and then why you wanted to do this podcast. And then I know you told me offline that you're not super active on social media, but if somebody did want to contact you, what would be the best way to get in touch with you or follow your journey?
Thanks, Ashley. So I am from Utah, St. George, Utah. I've been here a little over 30 years. Originally, well, about 35 years. Originally from Detroit, Michigan, um, but I prefer the weather here much better than Detroit. And um, raised seven kids here, and they're all grown now with grandkids. And um, I yeah, I'm not on social media a lot, but if anybody wants to get a hold of me, probably the best way to do that would probably be, I mean, I do get on Instagram every day. I don't post a lot, but I do get on Instagram every day. So that would be the best way to find me is on Instagram.
And what is your Instagram handle so people can find you
It
there?
is, let me look real quick because
That's okay.
I don't ever look at that. So let's see. It's at Ryder Betty, RIDERBETTY 62.
Okay, perfect. All right, yeah, because I can't wait to hear about your journey because actually, a lot like our viewers and listeners, I actually don't know a whole lot about it except with the few things that we have talked about that we have in common. And again, I think we're learning to wear it as a badge of honor. So, um, but yeah, so it's interesting that you said that you moved to Utah. From Michigan because the weather is better, but it still snows in both locations, right? So is that still
Well,
pretty
I'm in southern
difficult on you?
Utah. I'm in southern Utah, so it doesn't snow much here. Up in
Oh,
northern Utah, about 300 or 400 miles up north, it does snow quite a bit. That's where most of my kids are. That they get a lot of snow, but we down here in southern Utah, we get snow maybe once a year, twice a year, and it's not even that much. And it usually doesn't even stick. So much better.
oh, good. Okay, so it's not like completely cold, like it's not super cold for you then.
No, no. I
Gotcha.
actually love the winters here because it's I can't handle the heat, and the winters here are just so mild. And the summers though are really brutal here. They're getting hotter every year. So it's like this year we've gone up to like 115 or 117, something like that. So
Yeah, I saw that because I'm in Southern California, so we're
oh
used to the heat, but I'm kind of getting over the heat because, like you, I don't do well in heat, especially with like my fibromyalgia and other conditions I have.
yeah,
I just swell up no matter what.
yep,
And so, and it's starting to be a little bit harder to find where you can go to where the summers are going to be, tolerable. But if the summers are tolerable, what does that mean for the winters, So it's kind of like,
yeah.
um, you got to do a risk benefits. And I always just find it interesting where different warriors are living and if they think that the the climate really helps them or what. So it's just always interesting to find that. And wow, I had no idea that you had 7 kids and grandkids. You look really young to be a grandmother, so I had no idea. So that must keep you busy then during the week, huh?
Yeah, it does, and we I try to go up and see them as often as I can now that I can't work anymore. It's I like to try to go up and visit as often as I've been going maybe once a month if I can, and just spending time with them. And all my grandkids are getting older, and it's just they grow so fast. So I really enjoy doing that.
Right. And what line of work were you in prior
Um,
to getting sick?
I was a medical assistant. I worked for a
Okay.
pediatrician.
That's right. You had told me
Yeah.
that because we're both in healthcare. So
Yeah.
that's right. You had told me that. And I can't wait to kind of dive into your story. I don't know if you want to start there, start like at the beginning of your diagnosis story of how this, like what you got diagnosed for first, and then when you had to make the decision that, you could no longer work. Because I know that's a hard decision. I'm kind of in that decision making process right now, and it's really really difficult because you have to pay your bills, but you also have to
Mhm.
put your health first, and it's like how can you do both?
Yeah, yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, that was my dream job, and I loved it. I loved working with the kids. The doctor I worked for was amazing. Like it was just an amazing job, and I was so sad to have to leave. But I mean, my problems started way back in. I mean, most of my life I've had issues with my GI tract, and then when I was in my 30s, so back in 2004. I ended up having to go in and get an operation to have my large intestine removed, because I was just not able to go to the bathroom. And so that happened in 2004. And then after that, and I was having some pain before that. I was having joint pain and things like that. And every time I go to the doctor, they really couldn't figure anything out. But it wasn't until 2016 I went in, and they ran some blood, and that's when they diagnosed me with rheumatoid arthritis. And I had the factor, the RA factor,
Hmm.
and also the symptoms that go along with that, the joint pain and the tiredness and the brain fog, all that. But at the time, I didn't. Before I got diagnosed, I thought it was from the fibromyalgia, because I was also diagnosed with fibromyalgia as well. So, and those have a lot of the same symptoms. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so
Oh, we got frozen there for a
so
second, Betty. Oh, I
I got
lost you.
diagnosed then in 2006. Like this. Oh shoot, can you
I'm
still
so
hear me?
sorry, Betty. Yeah, we had lost you there for a second. Not sure if it was my connection or yours, but
I'm
you were
sorry. I don't
saying
know. I don't know what happened.
that's okay. You were saying
Um,
after you got diagnosed with
so,
fibromyalgia, and then I didn't hear anything you said after that.
oh, okay. So after that, I ended up having some back pain, and I went in and found out that I had spinal stenosis and degenerative discs, and so I was having all pain from that, and then um, between 2016 and now, I have been diagnosed with. I mean, like I this year I was diagnosed with ankylosing spondylitis, which is a spinal condition,
Hmm.
and also a diabetes, type 2 diabetes, um, and I also have over 30 diagnoses. So, and I just went in yesterday and got diagnosed with more. So,
Oh
um,
my goodness. Oh
yeah,
my God. And you're
yeah,
on my
so
podcast talking to me. Oh my gosh. Well, not sure if, and then we're totally going off script here. Not that we really had a script, but if you kind of wanted to process all of that or can't quite process that as well. I remember when I came on here after getting my Crohn's diagnosis, kind of processing it on here because I myself, I just got diagnosed with Crohn's back in May.
Yeah.
So, with your GI tract, what did they diagnose you with, or they just said your large intestine just doesn't work?
Well, so there was no actual diagnosis in order for to for them to take the intestine out. It was because I would go months without going to the bathroom, and
Wow.
my doctor didn't even believe me at first. He told me that was not even possible, and I told him, I'm telling you, I'm here, I'm living it, I know. And so he ran a test where you have to swallow these little like metal
The
things, and
the
then
capsules, yeah,
yeah, and then
with the
every day you
camera,
go
right?
in. It's something you swallow something, and then they go in every day with an X-ray and check how far it's digested, and they never digested in a week. So he came back and was and said, I guess you're right. You probably don't go for months, So that at that point he realized that because at that point I looked like I was 6 months pregnant. I
Oh
was
my
still
God, you must
feeling
have been so
toxic. Yeah,
uncomfortable.
I had been sick for years and just filled with toxin and all these things. So we went in, and that's when they took those out. And since then, I've gotten more microscopic colitis, or Crohn's, microscopic Crohn's, unspecified.
Oh, I have not, I mean, I'm newer to Crohn's, but I haven't heard of the microscopic
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, and I don't even know what all that entails, but I also have been diagnosed with uh oh my gosh, gastritis, chronic colon inflammation. So I'm on medication for all these different things. I take about 12 or 15 medications a day.
Me too. We can cheers together with our different cocktails.
Yeah, yeah, yep. And so, and I mean, I have all kinds of specialists. I have a cardiologist. I have a gastroenterologist. Um, I have a primary care, which is I just changed my primary care doctor and went to an internist because when I was going to, I liked her, but she's a PA, and she did. I have so many comorbidities that it's hard for any doctor to keep up. And
Right.
I felt like I wasn't getting listened to as well. And so
Gotcha.
yeah, so I went to an internist, and so he's my primary care doctor now, and I have a rheumatologist, and I have an orthopedist, and I'll just pain doctor, all kinds of doctors. And in
Yeah.
fact, I've had to change appointments this month because I had like 6 appointments with different doctors this month, and it's too much. So, um, but the stomach issues, and then there's basically no part of my body that's not affected with an autoimmune, with something, with some kind of issue, or it's something to do with the autoimmune issues. It's all the way from my head to my feet, and in fact now it's actually in my feet, because that's what I was in yesterday for. Is I went in because I've had edema in my legs and my feet so bad
Oh,
that I can barely walk by the time the night comes, and none of my doctors know what's causing it, and they're just, so they're trying to treat it, but they don't know what they're treating, because it's just, you know they have no idea. And so it's a lot. And then I've got to go see a urologist next week and have a test done, because I'm just having all these other issues with my bladder, and it's
oh, you poor
it's
thing.
it's a lot. It's a lot,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah, you were mentioning that it's hard for the doctors to keep up with us when we have so many comorbidities.
Yes.
And I can tell you're an advocate for yourself, just like I am for me. And I'm always urging our listeners and viewers that it is so important. I know it can be so overwhelming. And even when this is like, oh, well, we've been through this before with like 20 diagnoses, and here's 20 more kind of thing, but it's so important just to advocate for yourself and to keep everything organized. I've gotten a lot of compliments from other doctors because I just counted how many specialists I have on my dream team, as I call them, and there's 14 right now, but in counting. Um, and like you, I'm kind of head to toe. I have an issue almost with every um every body part, even on my skin, because when I was young, I had psoriasis
Mm.
and eczema and rosacea, and no one ever told me that there was a possibility it could turn into psoriatic arthritis, which is one of the things that I have as well. And it's also so crazy when you're seeing a specialist or a doctor like you or with the PA who doesn't really know how to manage what you're going through. And so that adds another layer of being overwhelmed and feeling like you're not being listened to, and makes it even more frustrating. So again, stressing the importance as to why it's so important for us to keep all of our stuff together so we can reiterate it to our doctors. And if it doesn't sit well with us, it's okay to ask for another doctor or to be like, you know what, but this is what is best for my body. Because it's crazy that you were able to have such a major surgery back in 2004,
Or,
and yet you didn't really have an official diagnosis as to why. You just had your symptomology. It's crazy that happened. Did you have to get a colostomy or ileostomy bag or anything?
no, I honestly, I was very lucky because they left just enough in there that they resectioned it to the small
Oh,
intestine.
good. Okay.
So there's, in fact, when I went in for my first colonoscopy a couple of years ago, the doctor came out afterwards and said, we can't do a colonoscopy on you because you don't have a large intestine. He said, so all we can really do is a sigmoidoscopy, which is a partial coloscopy, colonoscopy.
Colonoscopy, right,
Yes.
right.
Yeah, I was very lucky I didn't have to have a bag.
That's good.
And considering all the years since my childhood, and I found out years later, like a couple of years ago, I finally realized why I had this problem that causes this operation was because I went to an allergist a couple of years ago, and I'm highly allergic to dairy, to milk, to not lactose, but milk.
Oh,
So I can't have anything with dairy, anything. And we talk about, in our meetings about food sensitivities and things like that. So I have like a handful of things I can eat, and I can't even. I went to a nutritionist, and I felt so sorry for her because she said to me, she kept trying to give me these different ideas, and I kept saying, no, that won't work. That's got cruciferous vegetables. That's got, this. It's got starch. It's
oh,
got whatever. And she
right.
again she felt so bad, and she said, I am so sorry. I don't even know how to help you, And I was like, no,
Oh,
don't be. I'm sorry that I have so many issues. There's really nothing. So I just know what I can eat and what I can't eat. Most foods. I didn't know this till I got that diagnosis, but most foods you buy in the grocery store have dairy. Bread has dairy. Sauces have dairy. So many things have some type of dairy in them. So I have to be so careful what I eat. Otherwise, my stomach is so messed up. So I'm malnourished because I don't eat what I should, and also because I don't hold in, because of that operation, I don't hold in vitamins, so I can't. But vitamins do me no good, so I'm malnourished and under.
wow.
It's there's a lot of things there, yeah. So it's hard, but I have to thank you because when we talked and you talked about one of our meetings a while back about being your own advocate, that's actually when I started. I had started kind of trying to be my own advocate at that point, but I was always so worried about making my doctors feel like if I question them, they might think that I think they're not doing their job, But when I went to four different doctors with these bladder issues, and three of them put me on or two of them put me on an antibiotic like back to back because they said I had a UTI, and I kept telling them I don't get UTIs. I've never had a UTI. I don't have a UTI. And they insisted I had a UTI. They back to back, like I got a Rocephin shot, and then 3 weeks later, my cardiologist or my rheumatologist gave me a 10-day antibiotic to take. On top of that, after I told him that my doctor gave me a Rocephin shot that she thought it was a UTI, and he gave it to me anyway, and so I still have all the issues I had before the antibiotics, and so that it's frustrating. And that's when I realized, like, and then we had talked to and you had mentioned about being your own advocate, so that's when I decided to go find an internist. And I went in his office, and I was in there for like an hour, and I just bawled. I was just like,
Oh,
and I know you had said in one of the meetings that you told your doctor, like you told the doctor at the emergency room, I know my body. And I actually said that to the internist. I said, I know my body, I know all my symptoms. And if something is outside of that, I know it's something's wrong, you know. I said, I just need a doctor that will listen to me, that will listen to me and hear me out and work with me and not just dismiss me. And he was so kind, and he listened, he asked a bunch of questions, and so I think I found that doctor that's gonna, you know, and he did say to me, he was upfront, he said, the problem is, he said, with everything you have is progressive and none of it is curable. And I said, I know, I understand that. I know that because I've known that. And I said, I'm not looking for a miracle. I'm just looking for a doctor that works with me, that listens. So I feel like I'm heard, like I, you know, sometimes you feel like you're going crazy, you know, because the doctors are telling you one thing and you know it's totally different. And so that helps a lot, having a doctor that will listen to you and hear you and be up front with you as well. So
Right. Oh, I'm so sorry that you've had to go through that. I'm happy that I feel honored that I helped even in the slightest. But again, that's what this is all about. And if I can just help one person like yourself, just realize like it's okay to question doctors, then I'm doing my job and I'm doing the reason why I wanted to have this platform. Because, yeah, for so long, we're told, oh no, it's not this, it's not this, it's this, here, just take this for so long in our childhoods. And it seems like for you, even that, even in your childhood, it sounds like maybe you had some of this going on and they just didn't know what it was. And I know you're in an area, and correct me if I'm wrong, St. George actually has a really well-known health system there, right? Or a hospital.
Intermountain, yeah,
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 that they're pretty good, right? That's what
yeah,
I've, yeah, heard. And not to name drop or anything, but so that makes it even more frustrating because like for me, I'm in Los Angeles, so there's a ton of different health
oh
systems out
yeah,
here, but it's taken so long to get to where I am now, and I know my journey is still continuing. And even with these world-renowned health institutions around, you're unfortunately going to run into those doctors who are going to be like, well, I know best. And it's like, actually, I know best because I'm the one living in my body, not you. And I
yeah,
know what works for me and what doesn't. And what was interesting that you were saying about the dairy part is I've recently found out that even some things that are labeled non-dairy have dairy in them
yeah.
because I have to be careful with that with my Crohn's. And
Mm-hmm.
so, because Crohn's and dairy don't mix at all. And I've been what I thought was non-dairy for a really long time, but I just recently found out that no, you really have to look at the labels and really have to be non-dairy, non-dairy.
Yeah,
And it has to say, certain wording and oh, but if it lists, an ose or something, that there's sugar in that, like, it's just,
yeah,
it's a lot to manage and to handle. And so I get it so much. And it's just crazy that how people don't realize, like, you don't understand if you don't have chronic illness is what it's like. We literally have to plan our days out,
yeah,
our energy levels out, our foods, and like you, I'm malnourished too. I have to drink a lot of electrolytes because I can't keep a lot of stuff in with my Crohn's disease.
mm-hmm.
Because due to frequent, bathroom trips and everything like that. So even if I'm eating the blandest of bland foods, like I know for like 6 to 8 weeks before my Crohn's was officially diagnosed, I was just eating what I could, but it was like mashed potatoes and very bland chicken, and I was still not, it just wasn't staying in. So, yeah, but I'm so happy to hear that you found a doctor that, listens to you and validates you and realizes that, yes, you are your own advocate and I'm going to listen to what you have to say.
Yeah, thank you. I know it's so I know with the food thing, and I don't know, you probably feel the same way sometimes. Like when there's so limited things that you can eat, there I get to a point where I get done eating. I just stop eating for a little bit because I'm like, there's nothing that sounds good because I have to eat the same things over and over and over again, and it gets boring and it's bland. And so I get to a point where I'm like, I just don't want to eat anymore. Nothing sounds good. Nothing looks good. It's just, and then there are days where I'm just like, you know what? I don't care. I'm just going to suffer because I'm going to have that piece of pizza or,
I was literally just gonna say that, yeah, but sometimes it's like, you know what, worth it for
yeah,
my taste buds, not so much my gut, but we'll deal with it later. I totally
yep,
hear you.
exactly. And then I pay for it later and I'm like, oh, but it was so worth it. So worth
Right. In the moment, it felt good. I was normal. I could have pizza with my friends or my
yeah,
family. Yeah, I get it. I get it 100%.
yeah. Yeah, it's hard, and then for whatever reason, I can't lose weight. It's so weird. Like I'm overweight, and it like I know a lot of it's the medications. A lot of it's the medications that keep the weight on, and because I barely eat. And I've told all my doctors this. I barely eat. How am I not losing weight? I don't know how I'm not losing weight because I'm gaining weight. Well, now it's the water weight, but like how do you stay big when you continuously don't eat, or
Right,
when
when you're in a deficit, yeah.
yeah,
What have they told you?
well, they figure it's probably the meds too, and or lack of exercise because I can't do a lot of exercising because of my all my health issues and stuff. But they did try me on Ozempic a couple of years ago because I am diabetic, and they thought that would help with the weight. And I did lose 40 pounds, and I did feel somewhat better. I was able to walk a little bit more, took my dog for walks, which I haven't been able to do forever. But I ended up having a gallbladder attack and ended up in
Oh,
urgent care from it because of the Ozempic, because my stomach is so messed up, and
oh,
there's so many things going on in my GI tract that it just didn't hit well with my stomach. So
oh no.
stopped taking it. Once I stopped taking it, I gained all that weight back. So
Oh,
yeah.
are you able to try Manjaro or Zepbound? Because I'm actually on Zepbound myself.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, and I was on Manjaro before they changed the criteria that you
Oh
had to
yeah.
be diabetic to be on it,
Yeah.
but I've been really successful because like you, I can't exercise a lot, and it's crazy. A
Yeah.
lot of my Some of my doctors don't agree, including my rheumatologist who I love, but she doesn't agree that the weight and inflammation have a correlation, but I believe she's wrong, and even
I
my
think so.
PCP believes she's wrong because the second I had to get off of some of those, like due to surgery or whatever the case may be, I gained weight back so quickly and I didn't even eat anything.
Yeah.
Like, you
Yeah.
know, and so I had to go off of it for a while they were, while they put me on a horrible steroid. Not that any steroid is
Yeah.
great. And I went from losing 40 pounds from Crohn's to gaining 40 pounds back within a matter of weeks because I was put on a steroid. I was taken off a Zepbound, which was keeping my inflammation and weight down, as well as the Crohn's, of course. So, but sorry, I didn't mean to
Oh,
turn
you're
it on
good.
me. I was asking you a
No, you're
question.
good. No, that's interesting. I'm glad you told me because I also believe that it has a correlation. I really do. Like I said, I felt better, was able to do a little bit of exercising when I was on the Ozempic, but I had my doctor, my new doctor, the internist, put me on. Last when I saw him about a month ago, he put me on Manjaro. But the problem is, I'm on Medicare, and I fell into the gap. I don't know if you know anything about the gap with Medicare. Once you and the insurance pay so much, then for your medications, then you fall into a gap or the donut hole, and then you have to pay 25% of some of these high tier
Yeah,
medications, and that's those all of those medications like Manjaro,
they're
Wegovy,
super expensive.
they're all on that tier, that fourth tier
Yeah,
or the third or whatever it is. And so when my insurance covered what they covered when he sent it in, but my portion was 270 something dollars, and I can't afford that. Um,
did you get a
so
savings card on top of
well,
it?
No, I didn't get a savings card.
Oh
And
wait, you can't because you
tomorrow,
have Medicare.
yeah,
I'm
Medicaid, they'll
sorry.
do it
That's
for
right.
Medicaid, but they won't do it for Medicare. But I
Right, that's
did
right.
call like four different patient advocate programs or patient, whatever they call them, where they help people. They have funds that come in, grants and stuff.
Right. Uh-huh.
The last, they all said they were out of funds, except the last one. They said they were out of funds for that particular, diabetic medications. But they said we'll put you on a wait list, and when we will send you an email when funds come back in. You fill out the application, send it back in, and then you have 48 hours to do that, and then you'll get the funds, and it'll pay for a whole year. Well, they sent me an email. I filled it out, got a thing online that said you're approved, but I never got an email back from them, and I never they when I go back and look in the portal, it says that there's no I'm still on the wait list and there's no funds.
Oh, how
So
frustrating.
yeah,
Oh my goodness.
yeah, so when I
Yeah,
talked to my doctor about this yesterday, I told him about the Manjaro, and I said maybe if those funds come through, I can get you to send another
yeah, you
prescription
can't
in. But
afford it,
is there
right?
something we can do in the meantime? And he said the problem is every one of those types of medications are going to be the same way with Medicare. He said, so basically. There's really nothing I can do. I don't know that one you mentioned that you're on. I don't know if that's on that fourth tier or not. I've never heard of that one.
So
So,
Zepbound, it's a newer one. That one's the FDA approved one just for
oh,
weight loss. Like you don't have to be a diabetic. But I know for a fact, because my father is on it too, and he's on Medicare as well, and he has to pay out of pocket for it, unfortunately. And then same with my mom. She is on the verge of being pre-diabetic, and has to be on Manjaro, but she was horrified to find out that Medicare didn't cover it. And my parents are in a position to pay for it, but it's just it sucks that you have to pay for it.
yeah,
Like, these are medications for people who really need it. It
yeah.
just is it's horrible, and I wish there was not such an attraction to these
I
medications,
know.
but unfortunately there is because I have a family friend who is diabetic, and for a while she couldn't even find um, Manjaro
Yeah.
or Zepbound or
Um,
Ozempic even
yeah.
because they were completely out. And it's like, but she's diabetic. Like,
Yeah.
they have to have it like storage for people who really really need this. And
Uh-huh.
also this is me wishing I was a politician or a politician's listening to this. They should have it where for people who are diabetic that and on Medicare or Medicaid that there's even a lower cost to that, because
Yeah.
for our viewers and listeners out here, this is only one medication. I can only imagine how much your other medications cost because Medicare only covers so much. And even if you have a secondary insurance, it only covers so much. Once you've met your deductible, like for me, there's I have to be on a name brand medication for whatever reason for my migraines, and it's $150. Whereas for most of my medications, including the Zepbound, in my case, it's covered because I'm not on Medicare. I'm on a private insurance. Um, but it's just so frustrating. And then the fact that you've gone through four patient advocates, again, this is just like a bird's eye view into what it's like for the lives of chronic illness warriors, where people think, oh, you're just resting and staying home in bed and watching TV all day. It's like, nope, that is not correct whatsoever. Wish it was, and people would just magically do their jobs, but like after we're done with our episode, I have to call my insurance regarding two different issues because it's been like 5 weeks for one thing I've been waiting for approval for, and then the other one it's only been a week, but it's just like I'm kind of I so for one thing, just because I hope you don't run into this. So for me and my migraines, and I know you mentioned you have migraines, right?
No, I don't have migraines. No,
Oh, okay.
I get
Okay,
headaches, but not
good. Well, at
migraines.
least that's one thing that you don't have. I don't wish that on anyone. I was told months ago that we should get you Botox, because I've never tried it for migraines. I've had migraines since fourth grade. In fourth grade, I was told, no, you're dehydrated, right? Which that's not the case now because looking back, I'm like, no, those were really intense headaches that I had. And the fact that I got them all the time, like no matter what the weather was like out there, didn't make
Yeah.
sense. But was always BFFs with my school nurses, no matter what grade level I was at, even in college. So, um, you know, but I've been waiting now for like 8 weeks to get like approval on Botox, and I found out it was on my neurologist side, but still, it's like A isn't talking to B, and so I have to step in and be like, look, like what is the issue? Like, why is this taking so long? Because I know I can go through another doctor and get it approved right away. I was just trying to do it because I thought it made more sense doing it through my neurologist than my pain management doctor. But like, I need some relief here because my migraines stem from my neck. And
Oh,
so I've just been having really bad pain there. So that's one thing. Then for my Crohn's, my rheumatologist accidentally put me on the wrong type of dosage for I'm on a medication called Skyrizi. You've probably seen the
I've heard,
commercials,
yeah.
and I'm going to be sailing once I'm really on the long-term dose. I always make fun of those commercials saying all the new skills I can
I
learn to
know.
do.
They're hilarious.
Um yeah. Um but I've been waiting now for a few weeks to be switched from, she put me on the psoriatic arthritis dosage, which is significantly different than the Crohn's dosage. In terms of the loading doses, I need to go to an infusion center for 3 infusions of Skyrizi, which is 800 milligrams. I was only prescribed 150 milligrams as an auto injector. So that's obviously, not correct. But for whatever reason, I haven't heard from my insurance, and I don't know why it's taking so long when they've already approved me to be on the medication.
Yeah,
So it's just like it's a different dose. Like, what's the issue here? So, like you, I have to go then, take a huge chunk out of my day because we know it's not going to take 10 minutes to get through to somebody or to
yeah,
get the answer we're looking for.
yeah,
So I know how frustrating that is. And
yeah,
it's just crazy. And again, just to show people who are unfamiliar of like, this is what our lives are. And even if we are able to work, I mean, we still have to like, this is something I'll have to do on my lunch break or something
yeah.
like that. Like it never stops because
It never
these are our
does.
lives.
And the thing too is about, where people think we stay in bed and watch TV or whatever. I literally I sleep maybe 3 hours a night. That's how much sleep I get every night. And people are so surprised when I tell them that because it's like you only get 3 hours. I'm like, yeah, because I can't. I will sleep for a couple hours and then my eyes will pop open and I'm up. I can't fall back asleep because I've had people in the family say, why don't you just lay there and close your eyes until you fall back to sleep? And I can't. I tried it. It
Doesn't
doesn't
work that
work.
way. Yeah.
And or stay off your phone, turn the TV off.
Yep. I've been
Not
told
at
that too.
all. Doesn't work. It's not the TV. It's not the blue light. It's just me. It's the pain. It's uncomfortableness. It's whatever. I just can't sleep. So I'm going. And there's times I'm up 48 hours in a row without sleep. It's just,
Wow,
and I'm
that's
just
one I
going.
haven't done yet, but I wouldn't say it's not in my future. But because I've always had insomnia too, and no one could ever figure out why. They gave me medications for it, and over the recent weeks, it's been okay-ish. I've been maybe getting like 5 hours or 6 hours, which is pretty good for me, but I know those nights where I don't.
Yeah.
And even though I'm going the entire day, like you go to sleep for a few hours and then, like you said, you like pop up like a daisy kind of thing,
Yeah. And
and
it's,
nothing can make you fall back asleep no matter what you
oh,
do.
unless you take another pill, right? But
Exactly.
then you're really groggy. But here's the thing with me, like I had a sleep doctor who prescribed me the most powerful sleep things like Ambien didn't help at all.
Yeah, Ambien hasn't worked for me
Didn't help.
either.
None of those powerful things. I have no problem falling asleep because I'm tired all the time, but it's staying asleep, and none of those medications help with that at all. So, it's just, so I just stopped taking them when I tried it for a few days and it didn't work. I just stopped because I don't want to be groggy because I'm already tired
Right.
all the time.
Right.
So
And you don't want to take a pill just to take a pill because
exactly.
I think there's also that misconception that, oh, well, you're the reason why, like, like we can't get Ambien or like,
Yeah.
we can't get
Yeah.
pain medications or whatever. And it's
Yeah.
like, actually, it's the reverse. Um, we
It's
can't get
crazy.
Ambien or an opioid, like a stronger one, because of the epidemic,
Yeah.
the opioid epidemic.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like you, I won't take a pill just to take it. If it
Yeah.
doesn't work, then I'm not going to take it.
Yeah.
And I'm only going to take it when I'm like really desperate, when like I've put like a sound machine on, like my Google Home, and it's not
Yes.
working, or I've put some aromatherapy,
Uh-huh.
like,
Yeah.
I'm just, yeah.
I
So
know.
I know what that's like. And it's like, I always call it the sleep tango, where for me, it's usually probably like you, it's a pain issue. That's why I can't stay asleep.
Yeah.
And no matter, and I have a lot of pillows that I sleep with, and no matter how many pillows I have, sometimes it's still not enough.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And as far as like the pain pills, like I see a pain doctor, and I've been seeing her for years, and she's given me oxycodone, but it's funny because I've gone in to see her, she prescribed me a 30-day supply, and I go back in 4 months later and ask for more, and she'd say, it's been a while since you've been in here for these, and I'm like, that's because I only take them when I'm in extreme pain, and so they last me a month supply, lasts me 4 or 5 months because I hate to take them.
Right,
I don't like feeling, I'm already tired. I don't like feeling like I'm out of my head, and that's what they do. They make me so much more tired, and I can't sleep when I'm that tired. So I try not to take them unless I absolutely have to, you know.
right. Yeah, same. And my my mom, we recently all went on vacation together as a family, and my mom, I think she forgets how many medications I have to take. And so when she saw me, like, kind of shooting them up with breakfast, she was just like, "Do you really need to take all of those?" And my mom knows my journey. She's been, and I don't know if you've met her in our meetings.
I haven't yet.
Yeah,
No.
because she's going to help with our campus program.
Nice.
Yeah. But some of my issues are still new to her. And she's like, "Do you really need to be on all these pills? Like, and like for how long?" I'm like, "Mom, some of these are the rest of my life. I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I've been on some of these for 12 years now, and I'm gonna have to be on them the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Unless I want to, try to get pregnant. That's
Yeah.
the only time I can stop them temporarily, or if I have a certain type of procedure. But other than that, these are lifelong medications, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
accepted that a long time ago.
Yeah, I'm the same way with some of my. In fact, I have restless legs, really, really bad restless legs, and
Oh,
I take a medication for them, and I've been on them for I don't even know how many years, probably at least 5 years. And my family that's around me, when I've run out of them, which I try never to do, but it's usually because I thought I had one more, one more day,
right.
but whatever.
I've been there. Yep.
Yeah, and so or they say that it's too soon to fill them a day before, whatever. But I've run out of them before, and then there's times even I took them and they don't work. So my legs get so bad that I'm just like, if I sit, I'm constantly like shaking my legs hard, like to keep that restless leg feeling away. And my family is like, oh my gosh, when they saw me go through an episode the first time, they were like, oh my gosh, I did not realize how bad you had it. We didn't know like how bad it was because I literally, one time I was out of my medication and I couldn't get it till the next day. So I was up for 24 hours. Actually, no, I was up for, I think it was a weekend or something. For whatever reason, I couldn't get them for a couple of days, but um, I actually went to work. I was up 24 hours, went to work, and had it there, had the restless legs there, and was awake that whole time, 24 hours, worked all day, went home, and then was still that night, didn't have my pills, and my legs were horrible. So I was walking the floor all night long, and I literally fell asleep standing up in my kitchen.
Oh my gosh.
And I walked into a window, a kitchen window with my face because I was completely
Oh no.
sleepy and walked into a window because my legs were so restless. I could not sit. I could not lay down. I
Oh
had
my
to stand
goodness.
for all that time. It's horrible. And I think to myself often, like, what would happen if I couldn't get these medications anymore? What would I do?
Right. Oh my
There's so
gosh.
many bad things that, like, you can't control. You know,
Does anyone else in your family have any of the illnesses that you have? Because, like, nobody in my family does, with the exception of my dad has some spinal stenosis, which I have, like you, and I also have, uh, degenerative disc disease and ankylosing spondylitis.
yeah.
And then my mom has fibromyalgia and some osteoarthritis, but other than that, no one in my family seems to have had these issues, and I've tried to figure out where I came from.
Yeah, you know what? My mom has colitis, and she
Okay,
has diverticulitis. I don't have either one of. Well, I have the I have the
Crohn's.
the Crohn's, but
Right,
um, she has type 2 diabetes as well. But my mom's mom had rheumatoid arthritis and osteoarthritis, and I have both of those.
right.
And um, I think, let's see, my grandma didn't have diabetes, but she did have stomach issues too. So some of the things I have, I think I mostly get from her, my grandma. But my brother, my mom, my brother, and I all have alopecia, so none of us have hair. Mine fell out when I was in my early 20s. My brother's fell out like maybe 10 years ago when he was in his 40s. My mom's fell out when she was in her 30s. But we're all bald. And we all have some kind of stomach issues. My mom, my brother, and I. And then let's see. My grandma also had like spinal stenosis, but my grandma also had uh, congenital heart disease, which
Oh, okay.
I've seen a cardiologist because I have
Right.
issues, but so far my heart is okay.
That's good.
That's a possibility too in the future. So yeah, there are some things on my dad's side of the family. I don't know of anybody that had anything really like that. But I don't
And
really know a whole lot about his side of the family. So
and do
uh,
any of your kids have any of these issues?
my daughter she has polycystic ovarian syndrome.
I have that. I'm very familiar with it.
Yeah, and she also has GI issues as well, not diagnosed, but I believe she also has Crohn's or colitis because she got a lot of the same symptoms as my mom and I. So anytime
Gotcha.
anything, certain things like dairy or certain types of, I don't know, like potatoes, something like that, she'll end up in the bathroom a long time. So she's got stuff like that, and she thankfully hasn't lost her hair. None of my kids have lost their hair, but let's see, my son, my youngest son is healthy as can be. My my second oldest son, he has some let's see, he's got some dairy issues, and um, other than that, he's pretty healthy. And my other kids are all healthy. Um, so yeah, I'm not sure. Honestly, I don't know. I think a lot of my stuff is just, I think it's just compounded by other things. Like I truly believe, like, when you have certain like medical issues and then you get put on medications, I think some of these things can start new things going, you know and cause more different issues, different health issues and things like that. So
Yeah,
you know
it's possible. Yeah,
yeah.
or like with me, I've had a bunch of different surgeries. I've had 28 to date in
Oh,
the last 4 years. Yeah.
oh,
Um, and there's medical trauma there, right? So I'm pretty
yeah,
sure that that has created something, but
yeah.
this all started right before COVID hit the US, although to this date, I am very certain that I had a form of COVID that
Uh-huh.
started all of this and just went into a domino effect because
Uh-huh.
before that hospitalization where I needed to be on 5 liters of oxygen because I couldn't breathe on my own.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was saturating at 79%.
Oh,
Yeah, and they couldn't figure out why. They think I picked up a bug in the skilled nursing facility I was working in, but I'm pretty sure it was a form of COVID, even though none of the staff or my friends or family who visited me got sick. Um, but after that, before that, I only had fibromyalgia, PCOS, and some osteoarthritis. After that, everything just snowballed. Um, yeah. And, again, my list keeps getting longer, just
yeah,
like yours. And I'm
yeah.
always trying to find the correlation to see, okay, well, what's connected to what? And I don't know if you know this, but my rheumatologist, my GI, and my PCP all told me that there's actually a very big correlation between ankylosing spondylitis and Crohn's disease. I don't know if you've
Oh,
heard that
that.
before. Yeah, and so what they're unsure of, and I haven't really been able to figure it out, is which one causes which. And do you have to have one to have the other, which I'm pretty sure you don't because I don't know a lot of people with Crohn's and ankylosing
Right.
spondylitis or vice versa.
Yeah.
So you and I just happened to, hit the lottery with that one there. But yeah, um so I don't know if you're like me, where I'm like, okay, well, okay, is this causing this? Like, because I am trying to in some ways, because my mom is right. I wish there were less medications I could be on if possible, and I am trying to decrease those. So if I
Yeah.
can figure out like, hey, well, this causes this, so can I only be on this medication for
Yeah.
this? You know,
Yeah.
so, since that lung infection I had, I've had to see a cardiologist because now I have sinus tachycardia and it's very, very random. It's a lot better than it was. It's not, it only really pops up when I have a major surgery now. But before that, I never had heart issues. I had asthma since sixth grade, and
I've had it my
migraines,
whole
but
life.
yeah, but like other than that, I've never had anything like that. So it's crazy that how, and I know this because I'm a social worker too, that medical trauma, all different types of trauma
Yeah.
can jumpstart an autoimmune issue and
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
make things fester if you're in a stressful environment, right?
Yeah.
It's that nurture versus nature.
Uh-huh.
But yeah. So
Yeah.
it's just mind-boggling, and it's crazy how many family members that you do have that have a lot of the same issues that you have, because I don't find that very often actually with everyone I've interviewed for my podcast, believe it or not, a lot of them are the only ones who have what they have. So you're one of the first ones actually I think that I've interviewed who you have other family members who can actually relate and understand some of the things that you go through on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I believe that the trauma thing you're talking about, I've always believed that because I mean, I read a lot and you know, um, I've always been interested in like, um, why things work the way they do, why people think the way they do, and things like that,
Right.
psychology
Uh-huh.
and all that. And I really believe that trauma plays a huge part in starting autoimmune diseases and stuff like that. And I come from trauma, like childhood trauma, and I believe that that's where mine started. I believe, that's where it started with the stomach, with the intestines and all that, and then it just, I think a lot of those other things started flaring up after, but I believe a lot of that came from that trauma. And but it is I mean, even my family who do go through some of the same things, they still all feel like they're always like, I'm so sorry that you're going through all these things, because they're like, I'll take what I have over what you have any day, because there's so many things. 28 surgeries. I've only had like maybe five or six, and at this point, like I have, and there's possible future surgeries because I have hernias, and um I have a bulging disc in my neck where they just did a fusion a couple of years ago. It's right there now.
Oh,
So
they did? How did
yeah.
that go? Because that I know that's in my future because I have six herniated discs.
Oh,
Not enough to like completely fuse them yet, and I don't have the bamboo spine quite yet, but
oh,
um,
yeah. It actually went really well. I was really scared to do it because I have no immune system. You know, with I'm on three different autoimmune, immunosuppressant medications, and so I did stop taking them about a month before the surgery, but I was still worried because I don't heal well, and I've gotten infections every time I've had surgery, and so now my
oh,
doctor give me a lot more antibiotics before the surgery, during the surgery, after the surgery, so that helped.
right,
But
right,
I was terrified, but it actually went really, really well. And I was
good.
much better until recently. And then I went back and saw my pain doctor because I was feeling more pain in my neck again, which I hadn't felt since the surgery. And I'm getting sharp burning pain in my shoulder. And so she did an MRI and they came back and said that there's a bulging disc right where that fusion was done a couple of years ago. So she said I
Oh
can send you to a
no.
surgeon, but I'm like, I would rather wait because I'm terrified with everything going on with my system right now. I'm so worried I won't make it through surgery or after
Oh,
surgery. And the same thing with the hernias. I saw a surgeon about that, and he said with your risk of infection and your immune system, he said, you know, you could probably wait. He said you don't have to do it right now, but there is a high risk for you. So I'm just dreading having to do any kind of surgery. So you know, I'm living through a lot of pain because, like I said, with the opioids, I don't like to take the pain pills unless it gets so bad, you know,
right,
and so the pain's always there, but it makes it a lot harder because eventually it's going to have to happen. I'm going to have to do something about them. Plus, I
right.
once I had that neck surgery, the surgeon did X-rays after the surgery and to check on everything, and he said when I did those X-rays, he said I found that you have a rare spine disorder too. That it's called it's a long name, but short is OPLL, and it's where the ligament
Yeah.
that runs down your spine starts to calcify, turns into bone. So that's another thing that eventually probably would need surgery. Otherwise, it could cause paralysis or worse.
On
And then,
top of the AS, no less, because AS has similar
yeah,
characteristics and
yep,
a bright future for that for us
yeah.
to look forward to with that. Sorry for my humor. This is the way like I
No,
cope with everything.
I'm the same
But
way. I'm like,
yeah,
hey, this is what it is. You know, it is what it is. I've had a lot of people ask me, you know, how do you stay so positive? How
I
do
was
you
gonna
feel?
compliment you. Yeah,
And I'm like, you know what? Because what is my option? What is my other option? I can sit and stew all day and be sad all day and be depressed all day, but I've been there and I don't like it. So I'd rather just try to be as positive as I can, you know, and
right.
so and doing this advocacy thing, that's why it's so important to me to do this, is because I want to hopefully bring hope to other people out there who have these issues, some of these issues, and just show that you can still have a fun life. You can still have, you know, have be positive, and it's hard some days, you know,
Oh,
but
of course. Yeah.
I
I
don't
mean,
go
yeah,
down,
we
but then I get right back up again because I'm like, I'm not staying in this dark place. It's too much, you know.
Yeah, I allow myself a little bit of time to process, to feel bad, to be like, why me? And then I just, dust myself off and get back up and like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
But what I was gonna say too is, isn't it crazy how we sometimes have to pick which issue? Like we have a lot of pressing issues, like we're in pain and miserable for multiple different parts of us hurting, and it's like we have to pick and choose which one we need to focus on first and take care of first. Like
Oh,
I also have a hernia. I have H. pylori that
oh,
hasn't resolved itself, but I can't go on an antibiotic until I've gotten the loading doses of Skyrizi into me. So it's
yeah,
just like,
yeah,
so I can feel, not that you can feel it, but I just feel something's off in my
uh-huh.
system. And I know I don't feel amazing. And, it kind of aligns with some of the symptoms of H. pylori and the hernia that I have. But you have to, again, I just kind of have to grin and bear it and wait
Yeah.
until I've been on the Skyrizi for a while, and then I can go on an antibiotic. So it's just crazy. And I'm getting physical therapy for my neck, but I keep telling them because they keep telling me it's just muscular because they did an MRI and a X-ray of my spine when I was in the hospital because I pressed for it. I'm like, no,
Uh-huh.
something is pressing on a nerve. And they
Uh-huh.
said, well, we see four herniated discs in your cervical spine and two in your lumbar spine, which I thought it was three and three originally, but I guess not. Um, but it's not bad enough to like do anything surgically. And it's just like, okay,
Um,
so I'm just gonna have to live with this pain until it gets worse, apparently.
you
Um,
think with all the migraines you're having that they would feel like it's worth doing the surgery.
right,
It's so
but
crazy.
um, yeah, so thankfully I have a really great pain management doctor that does nerve ablations, which have helped in the
Oh,
past, but they're starting not to help as
yeah.
much.
Yeah.
And so he is willing to do fusions on me, but I'm really scared of
Yeah.
those because the spine is like the last thing I want to touch. And
Yeah.
I really don't want to go there, even though I am in a lot of pain and it's causing migraines. I don't want to go there unless I
Yeah.
absolutely have to.
Yep.
Um,
I get that. I mean, I when I
yeah.
had that surgery, I like I said, I was terrified. And it went a lot better than I thought it would. But he did tell me when he found that OPLL, he said that's dangerous. So if you have to go in and have surgery now and have to go into the front of your spine, through the front, he said you could die. He said you could leak cerebral spinal fluid. He said
Oh
because of
my gosh.
that OPLL. So he said it's very dangerous. It would be very dangerous to have to go in to the front and do that surgery, do any kind of surgery there. So now it's like, what do you do? Like if I've got so many other issues with my spine now that if what do I do if I have to like it's kind of like do you just kind of deal with paralysis or partial paralysis or whatever as opposed to maybe not making it through a surgery like so it's a lot of hard decisions.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a lot. And you just found this out?
it was a couple of years ago when I had that surgery
Oh,
the fusion on my neck. Yeah, so it was
oh
about
my gosh.
two, I think. He told me that. So yeah. So and like I said, my neck is. They just found a bulge and right where that fusion is, which is in a bad place because that's where they did the fusion. So that's it's gonna press. It's gonna and I notice some days I have where like my voice is hoarse because it's probably because it's pressing up against the vocal cord or
Oh my
whatever.
gosh.
And there's just days where my head feels like it's really heavy, like it feels like heavy,
I
like
know
there's
what that's like. It's kind of like a
on it.
bowling ball, like teetering,
Yeah,
or like a
yeah,
bobblehead, I feel like.
yes,
And for me, I feel like somebody's pushing my head
yes.
down. Yes,
You
I
know,
know
it's crazy. I
exactly
was going
that
to ask you if
feeling.
you felt that way because that's how I felt before I had that fusion, and and but I didn't have migraines, so it's crazy to me that I had headaches, but I never had migraines. I was really lucky that way.
I hope they
So,
don't turn into migraines because the pain you're describing, I go through that before, like that's kind of my sign that migraine's coming on for me. But I know that I have my disc pressing on my nerves, like I know where they're located and stuff.
oh
Not that
yeah.
it makes me feel better, but but oh, I'm so sorry. And the fact that it does, like it's already affecting your voice, that's crazy to
Yeah,
me. Wow.
yeah. Well, you know what my family calls me the one because like anything that can happen happens to you. Like if it can happen, it's going to happen to you because we joke about it all the time because my brother for my birthday one year he got me this because I park in the yard right behind our porch and he got me a sign like a parking sign that says this spot is reserved for the one. And then he's got a license plate for my car, like a cover for my license plate on my car that says something about the being the one.
That's hilarious. I love that. Oh my gosh.
When I come home with a new diagnosis, I'll tell my mom or my brother. I'll be like, the
Here it
doctor,
is.
the doctor will say, oh, you got this, and I'll be like, but why wouldn't I have this? Why? Why wouldn't I? It's me. Why wouldn't this happen to me? Because
That's kind of what I say. Yeah, I'm like, because why have one issue when you can have
exactly.
multiple ones, you know?
Yeah, I
Like,
laugh about it because I'm like, well, of course I do. Of course I have this because why not? I have everything else. May as well put more on there. You know.
exactly. Yeah. And another interesting thing, I just thought of another, I guess I'll add them to my dream team, which I didn't originally, but I guess they're number 16 are my dentist. It's a husband-wife team. And they, when I had really bad sinus infections, which I've always had chronic sinus infections, and I had to get
Uh-huh.
sinus surgery a few years ago because it got so bad, three of my sinuses were completely
Oh,
clogged, and nothing was working, and I had been on like 3 rounds of antibiotics, and then apparently I had a deviated septum that I never knew I had, so they had to fix that. But when before I got that surgery, my dentist was like, "Do you have a sinus infection?" I'm like, "How do you know?" And they're like, "Well, we can tell by your gums." And I'm like, "Are you really?" Like, I had no idea that they were connected. And then they've kind of been on me with my journey for the last, few years. And recently I found out that some of my teeth are starting to decay because of the
oh,
immunosuppressants I'm on and from all the surgeries I've been through.
yep,
And so they said eventually, you're gonna have to need all implants. And I'm like,
yeah,
great. So I've already had one. I'm most likely gonna need a second one coming
yep,
up. And it's just like, yay, something to look forward to. At least I'll have pearly whites eventually in my lifetime. But because I've never had dental issues until
yeah,
now. And
yeah.
so,
It's I'm the same. I mean, I don't have the decay, but I have periodontal disease because of so many medications and the autoimmune disorders and all of that. So I have to go to the dentist every 3 months to get all this work done, like the scraping and all that stuff. No matter what I do, I floss every day, I brush every day.
yeah,
It
same.
doesn't
And it
matter.
looks
It
like
takes
I
like
haven't brushed in like a year.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I go in, and every time I go in, they're like, "Yeah, you got more like space between your teeth. Some of my teeth are loose." And it's like, I know they haven't told me, but I know I'm gonna
Right.
have my teeth taken out eventually. Like I've had nightmares about that, about my teeth falling out, and that's like
Oh,
I literally have dreamt about my teeth falling out. So I think it was like, and this was years ago. So I'm like, I think that was like a premonition to what's to come.
possibly, yeah. And unfortunately, we don't get the tooth fairy unless it's like a big bill for, hey, this is how much you owe because insurance doesn't cover it. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it just affects you in every type of way, and it's crazy. You don't realize it until you start, getting these things, and it's like one thing sets off another thing. It's like, Sjogren's disease, where all your membranes dry out. I have that, and that
Oh
doesn't
my
help.
gosh. Oh,
It doesn't help with the teeth thing, and then the Raynaud's, where
I
I
have Raynaud's as
have
well. Yeah.
Raynaud's, yeah, and it's and then so many things affect other things, and so it makes it really hard to live with. So you really kind of have to laugh at it, because if you don't, you're gonna cry all the time. you know.
Exactly, because some people are like, "Why are you making fun of this?" And I'm like, "Because they're like, that's a very morbid sense of humor." And I'm like, "Well, firstly, I worked in healthcare, and
Yeah.
then secondly, um, like you said, if I'm not laughing, then I'd be in a
Yep.
corner, curled up, crying, and
Yeah.
just, you know, pitying myself." And I've said this almost on every episode. Our listeners and viewers are probably going to get really tired of hearing this, but we had a family friend who had fibromyalgia, has fibromyalgia, and that person was very negative all the time and always brought it up in conversation. Even if we weren't talking about that, they would be like, "Yeah, I'm in a lot of pain. Oh, my life, all this stuff." And so when
Yeah.
I got diagnosed with fibromyalgia, I cried for a week straight because I thought that's what I was going to turn into.
Uh-huh.
But then the light bulb went on and I realized, wait, attitude is
Yeah.
everything. And
Yeah.
so I was like, okay, I don't know what this is going to look like. And I don't know what fibromyalgia really means. I just know I'm always in pain all the time. And if you touch me certain places, it hurts, but we'll figure this out,
Yeah.
And I thought, I was naive at the time, thinking that that was where my journey was going to end. And that's also when I had some osteoarthritis in one of my
Uh-huh.
knees. But I realized like, attitude is everything. And I remember this family friend saying, "You don't have fibromyalgia." I'm like, "What do you mean I don't have it?" And they're like, "Well, you're not perseverating on it." I'm like, "You're right, I'm not, but it's a spectrum." And I might be in a lot of pain right now, but I don't want to focus on that because we're
Yeah.
having a get together. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm at a get together, I'd rather focus all my energy on that than how crappy I feel because I can do that anytime, So, um, and or if I have to cut my visit short, I have to cut my visit short,
Yeah.
but or if I have to bring a pillow to a friend's house so I'm comfortable on the couch and people come to me, so be it. Like whatever the case may be, but and I remember also being and I don't know if this has happened to you. I remember being in a fibromyalgia support group on Facebook, and I had listed that I had like several issues at the time. It was before all of my issues, but I think I said, "Oh yeah, I have fibromyalgia. I have Raynaud's disease. I have psoriatic arthritis. I also have ankylosing spondylitis. I have, or I didn't have AS at the time that I knew of. I just listed a few, and I remember there were people telling me there's no way in a fibromyalgia support group, there's no way that you can have all of those issues. And I was like, are you kidding me? And this is when I first started to learn that I really need to advocate for myself. Because I kind of felt ganged up on in a support group.
Yeah.
And then I had said, actually, if you look up the definition of an autoimmune issue, you can actually, if you have one, most likely you have another one. And they were also saying, well, fibromyalgia isn't really an autoimmune issue. And I'm like, well, it may
I've
not
heard
be
that.
considered one right now, but it is the catalyst to other autoimmune
Yeah.
issues. And then I'm like, I'm leaving this group because this is not very supportive.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't believe it in a support group for an illness that I have. Like people were telling me, there's no way you have all of this. Like, do you need to see
Yeah.
my medical record? So it's crazy, sometimes even within our own community, how that exists.
Yeah. And like you said, it's a spectrum, and I think that people who only have fibromyalgia and they don't have the same symptoms you might have from it, they think, well, you can't possibly, like, it doesn't hurt me that much, so it can't be hurting you that much. I think people just, they judge by what they know, not by what they like, um not by what really is. It's just like mental health, right? Like, people think that people with OCD, severe OCD or things like that, that they're just making a big deal out of a lot of things because, or social anxiety, whatever it may be. They're making a big deal out of things because they don't want to do this or they don't want to do that. But just because you can't see the disease doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And that's
Exactly.
that's what's so hard about a lot of the things that we carry, is because a lot of our stuff isn't most of our stuff isn't seeable. You can't look at a person and see fibromyalgia. You can't see ankles and spondylitis or RA or anything else. It's and so if you're laughing one day, in front of this person because you feel better today than you did yesterday, and then tomorrow you're in bed because you're hurting so bad, they're like, what's wrong with you? Like, you were just fine yesterday. You were laughing. It's hard when they can't see it's an invisible disease. You can't get, it's hard to get people to understand unless they've been there, that just because it's invisible doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. That's not
Right,
a problem.
exactly. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you've experienced this, but I've gotten so many looks when I park in a handicap spot, and I have a handicap
Me too.
placard.
Me too.
Yeah, and I've gotten looks when I have a cane, from when I'm recovering
Me
from a
too.
surgery. And it's just like, because in our heads, you have to be elderly
Yep.
and like hunched over, and you don't deserve that spot
Yeah.
unless you meet that criteria or you're in a wheelchair. And I'm, what they call, and I'm sure you are too, an ambulatory wheelchair user, that I
Yeah.
use it when I have like no energy left, but the only
Uh-huh.
way to enjoy that outing is with the wheelchair.
Yeah.
Um, and thankfully I have some really great friends that, there's like, different farmers markets and stuff. And I'm like, hey, I can only go if one of you don't mind pushing me. And I'm so sorry that you have to, like, but this is the only way I can enjoy it.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I remember I had, and I've said this on past episodes too, I had a boss that said, you don't look disabled. and they said, why are you in the handicap spot? Like, and she was kind of, or they were kind of insinuating I was abusing the system. And it's like,
Uh-huh.
while I know it's easy to, or easier to get a handicap placard, they don't just hand it out, either.
Yeah.
Like the DMV does, review it. And I was so mortified, and this was before I knew how to advocate for myself, that I just went to HR and got a different parking lot altogether because I just didn't want to run into that issue
Yeah.
again. But even I worked in a skilled nursing facility, and I had residents as old as 108 who were in better condition than I was. So when everyone's like, "Oh, I feel like 100 years old," I'm like, "Don't say that because there's a lot of centenarians out there that are in way better
Yeah.
shape." And I'm like, my bones are the as old as the dinosaurs because I feel like I can at least talk to them because I feel I'm offending all my former residents because they were in
Uh-huh.
such better shape than I
Yeah.
am.
Oh yeah, I worked
So,
with a lady. She's a friend of mine. I worked with her for like 13 years. She was in her 80s and she was doing the senior game, Olympics here in town.
mhm.
She would take like first and second place every year, and I would tell her all the time. I'm like, I am so jealous. So how you're gonna outlive me. Like you are so much healthier than I am. And she goes to the gym every day. She plays pickleball. She golfs. She rides her bike. And I was always amazed by her because I'm like, look at me. Like I'm in my 40s at the time, and she is like, and she was in an accident. She was in an accident on her bike a few years ago, and she ended up having to go to the hospital, and
Oh
she did so
no.
many things. And when she got back out, she got herself well enough to ride her bike again, and she went right back into the senior games and won again. She's amazing, and I'm like, I wish I wish I could be that healthy.
For me, it would take me like 3 years to recover from something
I
like
don't think I'd
that.
ever recover from something like that, honestly. I think,
Or yeah, maybe I would never fully recover. Yeah. Um,
you
yeah,
know,
just like, yeah, every time I've had a surgery, and most of them have been joint related, like my knee replacement, which I'm still recovering from, it'll be a year in December. I had warned my surgeon, I'm like, I need to have this done in a hospital because my heart rate is gonna set my Raynaud's off, which is gonna be set off by the blood loss in
yeah,
the surgery. And sure
uh-huh.
enough, I was there for 6 days because my heart
Oh,
rate wouldn't come down. My Raynaud's were super horrible. I've never seen them those colors before, just for me at least. Um, and I am supposed to be walking and everything, which I am, but I swell up when I walk. Like my knee still swells up, even though I've
yeah.
gone through physical therapy. And I talked to my doctor. I'm like, okay, so what should I do? And they're like, just take it easy. And it's like, see, I try to exercise, I try to do everything. And I'm like, I'm only gonna take it easy if you write in my chart that I'm allergic to exercise, because I don't know what else to do with myself. Like I'm trying to be healthy here, and I can't apparently. No matter what I do. And sometimes even swimming, like I'm in pain, like when I'm swimming, and it's just like, oh my gosh, I'm like, so please say one of my allergies is exercise. And my doctor, like
So
you're
funny.
laughing, started laughing so hard, and I'm just like, I don't know what else. I'm out of ideas here.
I'm telling you, I I get that. I was talking to somebody the other day, and he asked me, he's like, "Have any of your doctors ever asked if they could like do a study on you?" And I'm like, "No," but I told all my doctors I'm going to be in the medical book someday because I'm an
Yes,
anomaly. Like
that.
I went
Yes,
in,
I tell them too. I'm like, if you're doing a clinical trial, sign me up. Like, you can,
yeah.
or if you want to bring me to a medical school
Uh,
and have everyone study me and I just stand there, that's fine too.
I know I keep saying I'm going to donate my body to science. I went in a few years ago, about 3 years ago, 4 years ago. No, it was about 4 years ago. I had a hysterectomy because I had endometriosis,
Oh
and
my gosh.
yeah, that was another one I forgot to tell you. I had endometriosis as well, but
What stage was it, if I may ask?
no, I don't. They never told me. I just know that it
Oh,
was bad enough that they went in and did a hysterectomy,
oh my
took
gosh. A
everything out.
total
So
hysterectomy?
yeah, but
Oh.
when I went in, so I had to at one point during that, before I think it was after I had to go in and get a it's a test called a cystoscopy, I think.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
And they have to put a catheter in, and it took, so there was two ladies in there with me, and they one of them tried to get the catheter in, they couldn't get it in. She's like, I have never seen this, I've never had this happen before ever. So the other lady tried it, and she's like, I can't do it either. She's like, this is so weird. I've never ever had this happen. And then they had to go get a nurse who came in about a minute. After about a minute, she was able to get it in. But I was like, don't worry about it. I said, this is just who I am. I said, I'm going to be in the medical book someday because this is why right here. You know?
Right, right, exactly. Oh my gosh. Or like how to do this, like a guidebook. I think I'm gonna be a guidebook
Yeah,
of sorts.
exactly. Case study.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I don't mind. And because
Yeah.
my surgeon who did my knee said I was the youngest patient that he's done a total knee replacement on. I'm like, well, you're more than welcome to like do a case study on me or something, or like. And he's like, I might actually do that. I'm like, please, like, I go for it. Like,
I'm willing. Just do what you need to
yeah.
do.
It would
That's
be amazing if we got paid for it, because then we, yeah, but
yeah,
that's I mean, well,
I know
well,
that there are doctors out there, like there are schools out there, like Yale, I think is one of them that does, like they have people that do studies. Like I think they're in medical training, and they do studies on people with mystery illnesses, just try to see if they can solve the problem or whatever. And I've been for years wanting to like get a hold of them and be like, can you just, listen, I've got all these things, can you figure it out, can you figure something out, please? Like, because I'm willing to just give you whatever you need, blood,
yeah,
what, anything.
blood, yeah, blood, a finger, well, maybe not a finger, but hair follicles, uh,
It's funny,
teeth
like I
because
went
they're
to
gonna
get
come out
blood.
anyway. So
Yeah,
whatever you
exactly.
gotta do, yeah.
I have to get blood every month because
Spinal disc because those are gonna be, tied up sooner or later. Whatever, just take it.
I've got a little bit of hair follicles, take whatever you can
Right, right.
out of there.
Exactly. Wow, I didn't know that. I should actually look into that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to be looking into it. I mean, I have looked at it a little bit, but I've got to do some more research on it. But yeah, I mean, it's funny when I go in every month to give blood. There are a lot of times the phlebotomist will say, "Are you okay?" Well, they're taking my blood, and I'm like, "Oh, this is nothing." Like they've had to go into my wrists and to my hands because like my veins are horrible. And
Oh yeah, mine recently not collapsed, but I told them I'm like, you can't go on the right AC, and they're like, well, we're gonna try, and I'm like, no, do not do it. I found like you're gonna regret it, and it hurts like hell because it's now officially so scarred from
oh
all the times it's been poked
yeah,
for tests, for
yeah.
IVs, for whatever.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, my veins, so it's weird because when I had that colostomy where they took out my large intestine, I got E. coli when I went home. The day I went home, I got E. coli,
Oh,
went into sepsis,
oh
and
my gosh.
I almost didn't make it. But when I went into the hospital, all my veins collapsed. They had to go into the vein right there in the thigh, to that vein artery, or
Oh,
vein or whatever it is down there.
uh-huh.
They had to go in there to get an IV, and because I was dying. And anyway, when that happened, after that happened, I used to have the best veins, but after that happened, all my veins collapsed, and they've never been the same. And so that's why now none of my veins really work that great, and they'd have to go into my hands or my wrist. But I did one MA did find in my right arm, there's a vein that goes it goes up in the elbow part. It goes up and over, like kind of
Oh
sideways.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I know which one you're
If I
talking
let the
about. Yeah.
phlebotomist know that ahead of time, they almost always can get that vein. So I don't have to go in the hands or the arms anymore, or the wrists anymore, hardly ever. But when they were doing it, they're like, "I'm so sorry," and I'm like, "This is nothing. I've got, and yeah, it hurts, but like I'm just like, there's so many more things that hurt than
Yeah,
this."
I've
And
been through worse. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, even like just when you do the ablations and things like that, I've had a lot of those things done, all the injections for the back,
Yep,
all of that
same.
stuff. and there was most of the time I was sedated, but when I lost my insurance, I didn't have sedation insurance, and so I had to just do it without sedation.
You did
And
an ablation without
not
sedation
the ablation, no, that they
with
had to do
epidural?
a steroid shot, which is
Yeah, okay.
just painful too. It's
Yeah,
because
I hate
right
those
knee,
epidurals. Yeah, because it
yeah,
there's
yeah,
like the numbing. Yeah, no.
yeah. So I was
It
my
doesn't really do anything anyway, but I have to stay awake, not for insurance. That's just the way my pain
oh
management
shoot.
doctor does it.
It does
So,
hurt, doesn't it? And I know that like my brother and I don't know if you ever heard the movie Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze. Was it
hmm.
movie? But in that movie, he gets stitched up and he's saying pain don't hurt. He says pain don't hurt to the nurse, and so my brother and I say that all the time. So when I was going in to do that, those shots without any sedation, I was laying there on the table waiting for it, and then they're doing it, and I'm like, pain don't hurt, pain don't hurt. I just convinced myself it doesn't hurt, doesn't hurt.
That's amazing that you can get blood. Because I was told I have to save mine for myself.
Oh,
For
not give blood, like donate blood. I'm talking. I had to stop donating. I was donating on a regular,
Oh, okay. Oh,
but
you
no,
meant for
I'm talking about
tests.
I have to.
Okay, for lab work.
I
Got it.
took,
Okay, I thought you
yeah,
meant you were
I took
donating blood, and I'm like,
I
oh, wow,
used to,
that's
and then they
interesting.
told, yeah, once I started with the RA, once I got diagnosed with RA, they put me on those immunosuppressants. I went in the first time to get blood, and they're like, you need it more than we do. Like,
Yeah.
you can't get blood anymore. So,
Well, with my Raynaud's, they said you need to keep it for yourself because that could really set you off
yeah,
into a not so pretty flare. And
yeah.
so, yeah, I wish I could give blood too, or plasma. I wish I could give
You
it,
know,
but
funny. It's funny that I think what really got me going in to get diagnosed was I was giving plasma for a long time too, and one day I went in to give it. I was going in normally, regularly, and I went in to give plasma, and they'll do a blood test before. They'll check your blood before. They sometimes before they let you go and give plasma, they'll check it every now and then, and they checked my thing in the beginning before they sent me to the back to do the plasma, and they came back and said, "Oh, we can't do it today. There's something wrong with your blood. You need to go get that checked out. We don't know what it is, but you need to go get checked out." And that was what sent me on the trail to go figure out what was happening, because I was like, yeah, something. I mean, I was in pain, at that point. I didn't know why, but that's when I realized I couldn't. There was some. They told me there was something wrong with my blood. Something had to be happening. So that's when I started going in. They checked and found the RA factor and all that. So
oh wow.
yeah, so it's crazy. That's what led me there was not being able to give plasma because they found something in my blood. So
Wow. I guess that was, kind of a good thing
yeah,
in a way. Like at least you
yeah.
got a diagnosis. And I meant to say earlier, and then do you mind just tilting your camera up a little? Because I'm only seeing half
Oh,
of your face
sorry.
a little bit. There we go.
There
Okay.
we go. Sorry.
Perfect. That's okay. No worries. Um, um, you had mentioned it seemed like there was like a 12-year gap before you got like fully diagnosed, at least for your initial diagnosis. Since when your like GI issues started, and then when did was your RA around that after that 12-year gap, or when was that?
So I was having pain, joint pain, and all that stuff. Even after in 2004 is when I had the surgery for my colon, or for to have the intestine taken out. I was having pain then, but I was raising my kids still at the time, and in fact I just had my last child in September of 2003, and then in May of 2004 is when I had that surgery with my intestines. So he was only 6 months old when I had that done.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh my
and so
gosh.
yeah, so I was raising my kids, and working as well. The job I worked at the time, there was time I was working 7 days a week, sometimes for a whole month at a time, because I worked in like a hotel type setting, and so we it was seasonal, so I was working a lot, and I had my kids, and so I really didn't have time to go to the doctor and try to figure out what was happening, and all that, and then I got divorced in 2012, and then my health just started getting worse and worse and worse. And then in 2016 is when I went in and just started like, finding out what was happening. Um, so yeah, that's it. It was always there, I think, for a long time. I think it was
Yeah,
just not diagnosed because I was just busy raising my kids, and
gotcha.
so
Because usually we hear, from other warriors on here that I've interviewed that it took like 14 years to get a diagnosis, but it sounds like it's just kind of a different story for you. Like,
well,
but you knew it was always there, and you
yeah,
addressed some issues, but just due
yeah.
to your circumstances, because yeah, like what choice do you have? You have to raise your kids,
Uh-huh.
like and
Well,
work and
and
yeah.
the thing is I had gone into doctors in between that time because I mean it's not like I never went to the doctor, and I had blood tests done, but they never really were did like real thorough
They
tests.
didn't look for inflammatory
Yeah,
markers
they
or
didn't look
something,
for any of
right?
that stuff, you know.
Right.
They looked for your white blood cells, your red blood cells, things like that. But like, um, yeah, they didn't because I would go in for different things. I've always had health issues since since I was young. So it's just that they didn't find anything until then. So, but that's when I really started. Like I told you, when I went to give plasma, and they said there was something wrong with my blood. That was when I was like, okay, something is seriously going on here. But then I
Right.
started after that. I started really watching my test results. Because the patient portals came out, and I wasn't advocating for myself as far as like talking to the doctors and advocating for myself, but I was advocating for myself in a way where I was checking my patient portals. And I did have some, once I went, this wasn't until like 2006 or 18, 17, 18, when I became an MA and stuff, when I really kind of learned about testing and kind of was able to read things and stuff.
Right, right.
But I started to look at my patient portals, and I'm going in, getting blood tests done. My doctors is like, everything's fine. But I'm looking and seeing my white blood cells are high, my red blood cells are high. This is off, this is off. And I'm like, but why, but you're telling me everything's fine. And they're still doing that to me, even though I know it's not fine. Like,
Right. Yeah.
I just asked my doctor yesterday because I've had white and red blood cells in my bladder for in my urine for the last couple of months, and that's like nobody. That's why they thought I had a UTI, and they treated
Right. I was
me
gonna say,
in
no,
the bladder.
that's why. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Oh my gosh.
watching these numbers go up, like so the last I've had like my fourth UA just last week, came back with high blood cells. I went to the urologist. She did a test, and she said, in the office, and she said, we're going to send it for a culture because we think you have a UTI again. She said, we're going to send it in just because there's something in it. So they sent it in. Nothing came back on there. It was clear, no infections, nothing. I knew it would come back that way, and so that's why they're doing the cystoscopy on the 14th. But the thing is, the numbers keep going higher on the white blood cells, and
Yeah,
she said,
that's not good.
I'm not concerned about the white blood cells. I'm concerned about the red blood cells.
Oh,
When I saw my internist yesterday, I said, why are we not concerned about the white blood cells? That's not normal. I said, I've looked at my past, urine tests, and I said, never had blood cells in my urine. And he said, I'm worried about it. He said, there's obviously something going on. There's inflammation somewhere. He said, let's wait till the test comes back on the 14th, and we'll see where we go from there. But he says, I am concerned about that because that shouldn't be there. So, but when they're telling me, my doctors are saying, well, yeah, I'm not worried about that, and I see my blood test coming back with high white blood cells or red low blood cells or whatever, it's why nobody they'll call me up on the phone and say, I just called to let you know that your results came back and everything's fine. And I can see them that they're not, but for me they are, because they're used to my test being off. I even asked my last doctor one time, when do we get concerned about this? When do we get concerned? Because we're not concerned now, but how high does it have to be before we get concerned? And she's like, well, we won't worry about it right now. So
what? Oh
yeah.
God, that answer would not sit well with me. And I know that you're pushing as much as you possibly can, but
At
I would
that
be
time I
like,
wasn't, though. I don't
no.
want to push the doctor. I don't want to make her feel bad. I don't want to make her think I'm questioning her judgment. Like, but it starts to worry me. Now I'm starting to say something because I'm like, okay, I know that my blood tests are always off because I have inflammation constantly. And that's
Right.
the problem, is that they don't know there's so many things that are causing inflammation in my body, different parts like the RA and the bladder and the there's my colon has inflammation chronic. It's
And your
so they don't know
spine, yeah,
what's
everything, yeah.
and so I know that my tests are going to be off every single time, but and they go up and they go down, they fluctuate, but they're always, some of them are always high or some of them are always low, and then I always want to just say to my doctors, like, when do we get concerned when my test results are off? Because I feel like you guys, and I said this to my internist, I said, I feel like the doctors look at my test and go, okay, that's normal for her, so we're not going to worry about it. But when do we worry about it? So it is frustrating because it's like,
Of course.
could I die because they're thinking this is normal for me because my white blood cells are normally high, you know, but how high do they have to go before the doctors go, okay, that's not normal for her, you know? So
Right.
it is
Yeah, no, I think you're
frustrating.
asking all the right questions, and I would continue to push because if they keep elevating, like there's something seriously wrong, and not to, cause more anxiety than you probably already are experiencing. But yeah, I would not like to be told, oh, well, that's normal. It's just like,
Yeah.
but I know it's not. And like you said, you know your body, you know your past tests, like you know what your values are supposed to be. Just like me, I'm starting to, I haven't quite established a pattern just yet, but it's also crazy because I know earlier you mentioned you're on three different immunosuppressants, and those should be helping with your inflammation. So it's crazy
Yeah.
that they're not, and
Yeah.
that your inflammatory markers just keep going up, up, up.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is crazy. And I know, like, I like see even some of, like, my bun level, the last time they tested my bun level, for the urine,
Uh-huh.
which they checked for diabetics, it
Right.
was off, and that's never been off, and so was my sodium has been off, my potassium has been off, all these things that have to do with kidneys have been off.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
My doctor was like, I think that test was off. I think that, like, the it was like, wasn't a clean catch or whatever, like when you did the test, and I was like, no, I used three wipes, like I beat three times because I wanted to make sure it was a clean catch.
We're
And
pros at UAs, by the way. Yeah. Yeah.
right,
Like
you
we
guys
know
are,
how to do UAs by now because we've done like a
yeah.
cajillion a year. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, it's I know that it was a clean catch. So these numbers are off. Why? But again, medications will do that too. And I think I mentioned to you before. When I when I was put on my third immunosuppressant, I went in and saw my regular doctor and my PCP, and I said, is this safe to be taking three at one time? I said, because I'm already on two immunosuppressants. And she goes, well, did you let your doctor know, the doctor that put you on this, did you let him know that you're already on these other ones? And I said, well, they have my medication list. And she goes, oh, we don't always look at that. And I was like,
What?
a patient with all these comorbidities and all of these medications. I passed out three times because my blood pressure sky, like just went way
Dropped.
too low, because I've had doctors that don't check with each other and they don't check what I'm on before they put me on something, and I take it and it just I crash, my blood pressure or my blood pressure crashes, and I passed out three times for different medications that they didn't check on, and she's like,
I
yeah, we
can't
don't.
believe she admitted that. That's malpractice. And because of especially what happened to you, that
Yeah,
could turn into a huge lawsuit.
yeah,
And I don't mean to get into the legal part here, but my dad used to be a healthcare risk manager, so I know all about malpractice.
uh-huh,
But even if for a healthy patient, you don't look at medication lists, or
yeah,
so that means you don't look at my allergies, you don't look at
yeah,
what, because I'm allergic to several medications. I had to learn that the hard way as we normally
oh
do, but
yeah, yeah,
that is crazy to me.
I know.
Oh my gosh, Betty, what?
Yeah. That's the doctor I've left now and done this.
Thank God. Oh my God.
I know.
And I've never, yeah, that's rare. And I don't know. I've heard that you can be on like two immunosuppressants. I've never heard of three,
I
but
did
I
ask.
don't know much about that.
Yeah, I did ask my other the doctor that put me on the immunosuppressant, and he said, yeah, we've got patients that are on 3 or 4 immunosuppressants, and it's
Really?
fine. Which I guess if one's going to lower your immune system, they're all going to be the same. I guess I don't know if that's how they think, but like, yeah, it's.
Are they all for different issues or are they all
So I'm on Orencia once a week. I take a shot of Orencia for my RA,
okay?
and I use a thiaprine for my colon. Um, and then there's another one I take for my arthritis. I can't think of it at the moment. Um, but yeah, they're all, well, two of them I think are for the same thing for the arthritis, and then the other one's for my colon. So um,
Gotcha.
yeah,
Okay.
so but they're yeah,
Do
it's
you feel that they're helping at all or
I know the Orencia is
okay, that's good.
because I know that I got a chest cold a few months ago, and I stopped taking the Orencia because of my immune system. I didn't want to get pneumonia, so I stopped taking the Orencia for about a month, because that's about how long that lasted. And in that 1 month, I got nodules in my fingers, like that popped out on my fingers and my
Holy
hand because
moly.
my hands.
Wow.
The arthritis is mostly in my hands right now and my wrists, um in that month I've got nodules, and I've gotten like more synovial fluid that I can actually see the swelling on my fingers, and it's not going away. um
Wow.
like they were hurting more, and my doctor
Oh,
told me at one time before that, he said, because there was I get the foundation for Orencia, they send it to me for free because
oh
um
wow, that's great.
yeah, because of my income and stuff. Um but there was a time when I was in between insurances, and they they had stopped sending it, and the doctor said, he said, well, since you're switching over insurances, he said, let's get you back on the foundation, because he said, if you go off this medication, he said, you'll progress so fast, your disease will progress so fast. And he was right. I couldn't believe how, like, those nodules popping out 1 month on my fingers. So, and then the pain, so yeah, it's pretty bad. So I don't even like,
Wow.
that's another thing, we were talking about meds earlier, like being on forever and ever. I don't even know what would happen if I have to stop taking some of these necessary meds, for whatever reason. Because, and that's the
Right.
thing, it's like a fear, right? You have a fear all your life that, what if this foundation stops paying for my meds? I can't pay $5,000 a month for this medication. What happens then? It's always a fear in the back of your mind that,
Of course.
you know
Yeah.
you get your necessary medication that's going to help keep you from dying sooner.
Oh my gosh. And then also, well, how many more medications are going to be like added on to
Yeah,
all of the medications I'm already on? And it's just like,
yeah,
I want answers more than like a medication, like to be
uh-huh.
thrown at me.
Yeah,
And that's why I started asking so many questions and started just um, not accepting the answers for what they were all the time
yeah.
because it's just like, no, you're just throwing a medication at me. And none of my current doctors are like that. It took me like 14 years to find my dream team.
Oh,
Um, but you're just dismissing me because you don't know and or you don't want to deal with me.
yeah,
Um, and instead of doing that, you're just giving me different medications
yeah,
instead. And um, so I understand those fears 100%.
yeah,
And yeah, I understand also like, if my insurance won't cover this, what am I supposed to do? And unfortunately, the medications that we need that are life sustaining for us with all these issues are super expensive. And I've asked them before, like when they give you like a nurse ambassador or something, I'm like, why is this medication so expensive? Is there like liquid gold in it? Or like what? Are there gold flakes floating around? Like, why is this a $5,000 medication? I have no idea. I don't understand
Yeah,
it. And why do you jack up the price and then give us a savings card? Like, how does that make sense? I'm so confused here. And I'm like, I like if I start seeing gold flakes, it'll make sense to me. But like until then, it makes no sense.
yeah,
Like I just don't understand it.
yeah. It really doesn't. I've been really lucky because we have my daughter's best friend. They've grown up together. We were neighbors when they were like 2 and 3 years old, so they've known each other their whole lives. And so she's a pharmacist, and so we've been able to like I've been able to get help from her like when I was in between insurances and things like that. And when I had to switch over from Medicaid to Medicare, and I wasn't getting coverage for my medications. She was able to use these savings cards that brought it down to where I could afford them. Otherwise, I don't know what I would have done because I have to have so many every month. And um, I mean, we've been very, very lucky with her because she's also helpful answering questions about medications and things too. So,
Right.
you know,
Yeah, and it's crazy that the population that needs these medications are usually the population that can't work and are on a fixed income.
yeah,
And it makes no sense to me. As a social worker, just knowing socioeconomic status and then also being a patient myself, it's just crazy
yeah,
how expensive these things are. And if you don't have insurance that can cover it, like there's not much that you can do.
yeah.
Um, yeah. And so, yeah, I'd love to continue this conversation in part two, actually, Betty. So we're going to conclude part one right now, and then we're going to continue with part two. So listeners and viewers, stay tuned for part two because I knew this would be a really exciting conversation with Betty. So we are going to continue on the conversation because we're getting into some really nitty gritty stuff, maybe some quote unquote controversial stuff, depending where you are on the spectrum there. So we'll see you in a few.